Adequate notice of this October the 10th, 2013 meeting has been provided in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act by posting written notice and the agenda of the meeting on the bulletin board in the municipal building, 1000 Route 10, Whippany, Township of Hanover, and by hand delivering, mailing, and/or faxing such notice and agenda to the following newspapers: the Hanover Eagle, Morris County's Daily Record, and the Star Ledger, and by filing same with the Township Clerk. May I have a roll call?
Thank you, Mayor. Committeeman Schleifer?
Here.
Committeeman Faramasca? Here. Committeeman Bruno is at a function for Hanover Park Regional High School District, so he's excused. Committeeman Capola? Here. And Mayor Francioli?
Here.
4 members in attendance, sir.
All right, thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, would you all join me, please, in the Pledge Allegiance to the flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Okay. All right, gentlemen, at this time, I'd like to open the floor to the public.
So moved.
I did not appear on the agenda. Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, once again, I apologize for the committee, but the floor is open. If you'd like to address us from the podium, do so, giving us your name and address for the record.
Good evening. Joe Mahalco, 12 Anna Terrace, Whippany section of Hanover Township. Just to set the record straight, because I've been misquoted on a number of occasions by a number of different people. The most recent is that I had sent an email congratulating the members of the committee on their vote last week, vis-a-vis Kathy's Corner. I'd like it to go on record that I am in favor of the rezoning, but not in favor of the quick check. And if we could have that on record,
Right.
so that no one can misconstrue my intentions.
It's on record now.
That
on
was
the record, sir.
That was in an.
Let the record show.
That was in an email, Joe?
Yeah,
didn't get that
that's
email,
that's
Joe.
the latest going on, but that's all right. The other reason that I got up, a real reason, I noticed that tonight we're considering introduction of 3213. I'm a little concerned because this has to do with the amending the regulations for the Whippany Center Zone.
Yeah.
I have not been able to find what this is in. I'm sure it's in reference to the Firehouse Vision Equities property. I am wondering where I would have found what is going to be introduced. I thought that we had a done deal here, and I see no reason to change what has already been a fait accompli. And I'm not sure that I understand why we're revisiting this.
What this does, what this does.
Okay?
And, go ahead, I don't want to interrupt you.
No. The last thing I have to say, I am so pleased that we're finally taking issue with the sidewalk from Highland Avenue to Parsippany Road to Mount Pleasant Avenue. Thank you.
Okay. Joe, going back to 3213, the township planner, on township planner's recommendation, you're right. We had changed the zone in order to create the Whippany Village, and that included the fire company's transfer from their present firehouse to the restaurant pad, etc. And that was all inclusive of the zone, that transfer. Let me try and explain this. Where's Blaze? All right. What we did, based primarily what this did, and by the way, a copy of this was given to the fire company, so they had a draft of it. They had the ordinance to read, to scrutinize. But what we have to do now, in order for Moriel to go forward, Sam Moriel, Vision Equities, in order for that developer to move forward, this zone had to be modified to take out of the Whippany Village the firehouse and the commissioner's house. Why? Because while they were captured in the entire zone plan, if those two properties were sold separately to another party and not to Vision Equities, right? We were concerned that the integrity of the zone plan could be broken in some fashion. In other words, the zone plan for Whippany Village had certain specified requirements in it, you know, between sidewalks, between lighting, between, you know, the buildings, etc. And so what this did is this took out those two properties out of the Whippany Village zone, allowing the fire company and the commissioners to freely deal with their properties wholly on their own in the zone without any variant situations being impacting it, right, including the cell tower. That's all this did. Now, in turn, the property this gets complicated, the property that the fire company was to have taken, which was the restaurant portion up above, right, now falls back into the zone under Mr. Moriel's plan for future development by him. Am I kind of explaining that correctly, Mr. Planner?
Yes.
Yeah.
Basically, it's to allow the development to move forward with not requiring that the fire company properties be part of the development. They would develop separately, but hopefully in a compatible fashion.
Well, doesn't that change the restrictive elements that we introduced when it was inclusive of the firehouse property, in addition to which, vis-a-vis the firehouse property, why doesn't the man just buy the firehouse property and make it all-inclusive?
Well,
He has made a substantial, wise investment gain on his Lucent property, and I believe it's the same company, Vision Equities. And I think there should be some opportunity for him to have a cohesive development inclusive of the fire department property simply by buying them out. And then we wouldn't even need to change the zone.
it is so simple. It is so simple, and it was simple from the start, or so we thought. But this modification here, and the reason we wrestled over it, is just the reason that you mentioned. We wanted to protect the integrity of the Whippany Village zone. We didn't want to have several pieces of property developing under different standards, and this tries to avoid that. This tries to include the fire company and the firehouse in a way that they have to conform to the Whippany zone, right? But meanwhile, freeze it up so that it's independent within the zone, so that the fire company and the fire commissioners can sell their properties to whom they wish, including his truly, Mr. Moriel. In the opinion of me,
I understand.
we wouldn't have had to gone through this zone change had this gentleman agreed, even if he backed off of his first agreement to swap, if he would have just agreed to say, hey, I will buy and acquire these two properties, then it would have been a moot point, I think, you know.
My other concern, since we're going this deep in that same particular venue, I am very sure that I heard at one juncture the grade of that property was to be maintained relative to what it originally was. Now, both you, I, and everyone sitting here knows that property's been raised close to 5 feet.
Yeah.
That wasn't in the proposal. In addition to him having raised the property to whatever degree it may be 3 feet, but it's been raised.
Yep.
The back portion, which was of most concern to most of the opponents to this project, was definitely not going to be raised. Well, in raising the front to put the bank on, they kind of evened it off to the back, which means the back was raised too.
Jerry, he graded, all the property was graded to the rear?
He did some grading, I mean, yeah, that was part of the approval, though.
I know he modified the front where the Chase Bank is on that one side, and certainly the terrain where the CVS is, has always been elevated.
Well, that was always all.
Yeah, but we understand the point that's being made here, and that is that both the firehouse and fire company certainly are going to be impacted by the changes in grade on each side. I think we took that into consideration too, you know, when we looked at this thing. But are you suggesting, Joe, that grading was not part of an engineering approval process?
I am definitely suggesting.
No, I think the grading that was done was as what was approved by the planning board.
Was consistent with the
Yes,
planning
was
board
consistent.
approval of this thing?
It was.
Do you want to see those documents?
I'm
I'm just saying. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, I didn't mean to be facetious.
We understand it, yeah.
But, I think maybe Mr. Ratty would attest to partial of what I'm saying.
Hi, Judy Iradi, 27 Malaportis Road, Whippany. I think the problem here is what the developer promised and what the developer was actually given. He stood here at this podium and promised and promised and promised that he would build a firehouse for the fire company. He promised to me, when I was sitting at the podium, that the elevation of that property would remain the same. Promises aren't in writing, and obviously it's not back when a person's word was their word, but I digress. I'm intimately familiar with the zone change, and this piece of property on Route 10 was zoned for single commercial usage such as a bank, a CVS, steakhouse, office building. So therefore, if you had property, you could build any of those on it. Because the builder came in and says he was going to build a firehouse, we decided, for the betterment of the Whippany residents.
I have to stop you with that comment. That comment, from day one, I've refuted. I sat on the relocation committee. I initiated the idea of the fire company getting the benefit of a property swap, okay?
Correct.
Somewhere in this mix came the fact that this developer, regardless of what I think of this developer, that he was going to build a firehouse and deliver that property transfer and the fire. That is not correct. And
Okay.
I'm telling you from
okay.
my...
So I'm glad you reminded me, because you were the mayor at the time.
That's
The
correct.
zone change came from the planning board to the township committee. In my opinion, the worst zone change I've ever seen. However, I was persuaded to pass it with certain concessions because it was portrayed to us that something was going to be done for the fire company.
What was going to be done for the fire
Something.
company in exchange for the difference in valuation between the estimated value of their frontage, which I will tell you was more than the value of the restaurant property in the
Okay.
back, was that they would get consideration for approximately $100,000 worth of engineering and field work. That's what was,
Okay.
that was going to even out the swap.
Okay. So
But
the,
nobody was going to raise steel, close walls, build a $3, $4, $5 million firehouse.
okay, we'll keep that premise until later on. Therefore, we voted for this zone change. What it meant was now you had an overlay zone where you could, if you had, and this was a safeguard put into the zone change, specifically by me, that all the property, there was a minimum acreage needed to have an overlay zone, and the minimum acreage included the firehouse. This safeguard was so that the developer, although others felt that he would honor his word, it was safeguard put in there so that the fire company would not be left out in the cold. The safeguard was he needed all this property to develop his own, which was very intense, had a lot of asphalt, had so many variances, I can't even count them. Had, 2 or 3 stories worth of rental apartments over stores. Do you know units of rentals going in that property if you make this zone change?
No, sure I do.
Okay. So anyway,
No
so,
surprise to me, the entire site's no surprise to me, and the site would have gone nowhere had we not do this amendment. But go ahead.
okay, so this developer who has made lots of money at that site plus at Lucent now refuses to buy the fire company's property, which is on the market for $1.2 million, but back then he was going to give them a piece of property plus $100,000. Don't you think that compensates for it? Okay, why are you bending over backwards to give this developer exactly what he wants? He's stuck. He won't buy the property, he won't build. Why ordinance to let him off the hook? What is the justification for changing this ordinance?
We're changing the ordinance so that the fire company can sell their properties outside the zone as well.
It's on the market right now, they can sell it right now. Also, fire company's property out of the zone, how does that make it consistent? He builds a consistent,
We're not taking it out of the zone, we're taking it out of the planned development.
okay, then how does it make the fire company consistent with the planned development?
A lot of the standards are the same. A lot of the ordinance says that the architectural design has to reflect the overall
Okay,
zone.
so now, under the current ordinance, the fire company's property for sale at this particular time doesn't have to comply to certain standards. If I came in to buy the property,
Actually, it helps the fire company's property in that it changes some of the standards even to the fire company's property and relaxes some of those to enhance its opportunity to develop in a manner consistent with the planned development.
as long as you want to do what this ordinance now says that property. In other words, I have a piece of property that doesn't have restrictions on it right now.
It does have restrictions.
Doesn't have the restrictions of the planned unit development that,
No, it doesn't.
it doesn't have the restrictions of the planned unit development. But under your ordinance now, when you take the fire company's property out of that and rezone that, they will have the restrictions of the planned unit development?
No.
If they don't have the restrictions of the planned unit development, how are they going to be consistent with that development?
You know, this is an agenda item we're going to hold a hearing on. I don't know how much the committee wants to discuss it. I mean, I'll be happy to answer that, but I think it should be in the context of a hearing. Judy, the short answer is both before and now, the zone consists of 2 sets of standards, conventional development and planned development. The conventional development is what the fire company today can develop under and what tomorrow they could develop under. Some of those standards have changed, but not in a way that's harmful to the fire company property. They also still have the option of becoming part of the planned development. It doesn't prevent that. It just allows the planned development to proceed without them because we cannot, frankly, force the developer to acquire the fire company property. And the planning board felt that it was better for it to proceed than to leave it sitting there, half finished, the way the township sees it is the town wins when the developer wins in this case, because it's better for a project to move forward than to sit there with an uncompleted project waiting for 2 private property owners to consummate a sale. And this is just trying to facilitate that. So,
But the only way this planned unit development should have ever moved forward is for the firehouse to relocate, which was the plan of creating that zone. Now that plan is still in place. If he wants to move forward, he can either do that, acquire the fire company's property, or what's the problem with building a conventional in that site?
from the township's perspective, leaving aside what the fire company wants or the development wants, from the township's perspective, if we did conventional development, there wouldn't be shared access, there wouldn't be shared parking, there wouldn't be uniform design. Each lot would have its own driveway out to the roads. And I think that would be worse from a planning perspective than the plan development that we're trying to promote, both by the current ordinance and by the proposed amendment to that ordinance. So I think it's better for the town to have, yes, would it be better if the fire company property was part of it? Yes, it would, but we can't force that to happen. So it's better to get 80% of what we were trying to achieve than none of it. So, I mean, that's my simple answer to that, is that and the planning board agreed that it was better for us to proceed and get what we could for the township's benefit out of this than sit and wait and get nothing. So, I mean, it may or may not satisfy you, but that's the answer that I would.
So you think it's better, you think that having what's right now, they could use, single unit, we'll say, development such as what was planned for there, a steakhouse, office building, bank, a CVS, which can now be done under the conventional building, still be done under, you think that's worse, or you think it's better to have all of that plus stores, 3 stories worth of rental apartments, and all the asphalt? You think that's better than having just commercial development over there?
Permitted uses are the same under either conventional or planned development. The difference is under conventional, everybody has their own parking lot, their own driveway, their own detention system for their stormwater runoff. With the planned development, everyone's able to share the driveway, the access, they're able to share the detention systems, the utilities, they have uniform lighting, they have uniform architecture and design, you get a better result for the town.
So the conventional allows for the 2-story store buildings with 3 stories worth of apartments on top right now.
That doesn't.
It doesn't allow that.
It allows for residential use above, but not at the same type. It's the same use, it's just, it doesn't allow for.
The conventional will allow for residents on top of stores? How many units?
I think 2 on top of a store.
2 on top of a store versus 46 if you change this ordinance.
Each store, mind you.
What about our schools? Is anybody worried about
That was
overcrowding?
consistent with the design from day one. Nothing's been changed.
And it's also in our housing plan
Nothing's been changed.
to provide that.
Except for the minimum acreage. Now you want to also, the fire is a great part of the ordinance and that zone change. Now you want to, first the developer, now you want to cut the fire company out. Thank you.
It's a very unfair statement, Ms. Arati, and a very political. Nobody fought harder for the fire company than yours truly. Nobody wanted to see the fire company get off of that Route 10 spot than yours truly, and I made every effort to do so. I can't stand up for this developer, all right, who, in my opinion, absolutely
Reneged.
for want of a word, okay, absolutely devastated this arrangement, okay? And up until this ordinance, nothing could happen. No further development on that.
Conventional could.
Up until this ordinance. And the only way that we could free him to go forward and the fire company to go forward is to create this zone which allowed us to take those 2 properties, both the firehouse and the commissioner's house, out of that area. As far as the engineering comment that you made earlier, I mean, that we can check with the engineer. As far as raising the topo for the Chase Bank, et cetera, if that was consistent with the approvals, Jerry, and you're saying it is, then that's easily looked at. Anybody that buys those properties is going to understand the need for proper engineering and drainage and so forth in that particular area, School Street. There's no question about that.
But I agree with you. You probably tried all you could to get this developer to comply with what he portrayed that he was going to do. And I believe that you did do that. So build a conventional buildings over there. So if you tried everything you could and he wouldn't listen, the fire company's up for sale and he wouldn't listen, why are you now going to, in my opinion, cave in and give him what he wants?
If he acquired the fire company or didn't acquire the fire company, would he not build a conventional building on that site? In the swap, do you think he intended to keep the fire company building there? Do you think he intended to take it down and build a retail building consistent with the rest of the site, which is certainly the privilege of the fire company to do so privately? Nothing's changed.
Except for the fire company is totally out of the equation now, totally.
Actually,
They
this-
have no
this-
leverage.
This ordinance enhances the development potential of those fire company
Yeah,
properties.
please clarify the benefit, Mr. Branchow, to the fire company and the considerations the planning board meant as they evaluated to do that, so that we could provide the greater option of the possibility to be part of either scenario, where this developer could buy that property.
Or they could sell it to somebody
Or in
else.
the event, what would happen in the event the fire company decided to sell it to a third party?
The floor area ratio of the property was increased from 25% to 35%. And that was based upon a detailed analysis of what could fit there. We changed the setbacks from School Street so that could happen. There were a number of ways in which we enhanced that. We also required that it also consider in its design the overall character of the zone and try to match that as much as possible. So we still haven't given up as far as getting a product that, while may not be technically part of the planned development, will look like it is, even if it's under separate ownership. So I believe that this is going to enhance the value of a fire company's property and its development potential.
Okay, time will tell. Thank you.
The fire company, look, just for the record here too, let's understand something, because we're getting a picture painted here from one side of this desk, and I find it quite annoying. I'm not going to war with the Whippany Fire Company, Judy, all right? I'm trying to work with them, and they know that for years, that I've been supportive of them. We're trying to make the best possible deal for them in the sale of their land, the merchant's land. They found more attractive property. They're going forward on their own arrangements at this point. I wish I could help them in that too, but they've gone forward with something else that they find even more desirable. One way or the other, the sale of their property, be it a swap or a market sale, is going to take place. One way or the other, the topo past that property, whether it's that developer, Vision Equities, or anybody that buys their property, is going to have to deal with modifying the topo to their property because it's in a flood area, right? There's no question about it. 6 of one, half of the other, you know? So that's where we are. I don't think this ordinance in any way, shape, or form depreciates or takes away from the fire company's ability to get the best possible return on their property. Matter of fact, it allows them to, and still get this zone to move forward. We've been what, a couple of years installed on this matter, you know, for all parties, and that's you know, hopefully the adoption of this zone will free this up to get it going. But nothing's changed with the retail uses in the back. Nothing's changed with the amount of apartments that are used. Nothing's changed with the setbacks from the railroad. Nothing's changed with the fact that he's still got to deal with the railroad to acquire some additional right-of-way properties back there that he hasn't done. I don't think I'm missing anything.
Well, the only thing that's changed is that we required sidewalks now on Troy Hills Road that weren't required as part of the
As
original.
you turn the corner, yeah.
So that we insisted upon that from a safety standpoint, and the representation of the rights of the fire company have been fully held at the forefront as planning went through the recommendation to ensure that they would be given total flexibility under either condition. So we would hope that it eventually is sold, and as soon as it could be done.
But let's be sure, whoever acquires the property is going to build consistent with what we would have done originally with the entire Whippany Village zone.
We'll be held to that.
We're not going to have a change just because you cross the property line. It's going to be consistent, you know, that's it. Tom, how you doing?
How are you?
Good.
Tom, Ace Gallagher, 20 Woodfield Drive, in the Whippany section of Hanover Township. I just want to take a minute
Where'd you
to
get
say
that
that we.
catchphrase on the back?
What was that?
Do you have a mark on that? Do you have royalties?
It's on here right now. It's going to be on here shortly if it's not now.
I happen to like it, but go ahead.
It does sound good. I would just like to say that on October 19th, we are going to have a one-day, one-school beautification and safety event at Salem Drive School. Many of us have been working very hard on it. I want to say thank you very much to everyone on the Township Committee for helping. A lot of people in our school, our Board of Education, Scott Pepper, the whole town's going to come together. We have quite a day planned, including food, a DJ, a lot of local companies donating. We also have quite a bit of money raised in plant material. We're going to do quite a bit over there. We already started marking it out. We called for our mark out for our new plantings. Everything's moving ahead, but I just wanted to take a moment out to say thank you very much, guys. I've talked to every one of you about it. I've asked every one of you a couple favors, and I know everybody's supportive, and it means a lot to me, and it means a lot to our kids and our schools. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for
And
that.
Kenny, thank you very much. Kenny was at the meeting Tuesday night, and we banged out a lot of details.
Thank you for that. And,
Thanks, guys.
And we thank you. I mean, the one day, one school project has been absolutely outstanding, going forward with that. And, we're happy to support, the work that you're doing on that side. It's great. I think Mr. Olson's pushing you away from the.
He is. And the one thing I do want to say, too, is in the last couple of years, it's become a very popular catchphrase, shared services, public
Yep.
and private sector partnerships. And we've been doing it for years here, and this is just another good example of it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ace.
Howard Olson, 93 Griffith Drive, Whippany, New Jersey, Hanover Township. Got 4 questions. I promise not to go past the 5-minute limit. Number 1, seeing that we're really working up on Route 10 and trying to clean that up, is there anything in the works right now to take care of that house next to Bogey's? Because that is a very, very bad eyesight.
That's an understatement, yeah. To the extent that I know, and I know, Fred, you're here. So
Yes.
we're trying to work with the property owner. The owner, the house is in the hands of his estate. The owner is deceased. And we're trying to work through the estate on that house. So the estate wants a particular use. I think that there are other developers in the area that would like to acquire that property. I don't think the township is wanting to go after it. We don't want to acquire it on ourselves, but we do want it to develop in some fashion. But I think the driver on this ultimately is going to be the zone change that the planning board is proposing for Route 10 on both sides, all the way down to the Algonquin, so that it'll encourage development or acquisition of that house, let me put it that way. But I don't know that there's any further movement on it, Howie, that I can tell you, but,
But we've also had property maintenance issues where we've taken that on, where we had a hearing and we brought, in this particular matter, the estate and the executor for the estate forward, and we charged the estate with some cost for some of the cleanup that we had to do. And it's still on target to address that because although they didn't oppose the fact that we had to do this work, it still was concerning that we had to take it to that extreme and have an actual public hearing, and we had the construction official write up a report, and this governing body approved that we could do certain work. Can't do everything, but we're trying to make sure we address it under property maintenance as well.
Fred, even if we could just get him to knock the house down.
That's something that was discussed at one point in time, and, down the road, that could be something that if this doesn't move in the right direction, or if there isn't any additional care, that could be a result. We did speak to Sean Donlin about that when this came up. I mean, it's a little more of it's a bigger step, but it's not outside of the scope of a possibility if it comes to that.
Great. Number 2, trains.
Train.
With all the storage that they have here, since when has Hanover Township a junkyard for all their trains?
Which side of Jefferson Road are you talking about?
Both.
Yeah.
and all the way into East Hanover.
You know, Howie, the railroad stands behind the protection of the federal laws that govern them. And we have asked them to move those passenger cars,
Yeah,
which we have found to be problematic, vagrants, etc. We have asked them in the past to move tank cars, which have been stored on sidings right within 100 yards of residential areas.
right.
We have asked for cooperation in cleaning up the yard and shielding it. I'm just trying to do a scorecard here and find out how much, you know, how much of this has we've been able to get done. It's been an uphill battle all the way. No cooperation. No cooperation, and I think the last answer we got on those rail cars, which I thought was pretty imaginative, was that be saving them because there's movie companies that want to use those rail cars, and he's going to be using them in some up-and-coming movie. Hope I get a chance to see it in the theater near me, but that's where we are with
But there's nothing we can do with that, right,
with the
Bob?
M&E. We can continue to try and work with him, to cajole, to
Yeah.
cooperate, ask his cooperation and see. Are there any particular areas, or are we just talking about the unsightliness of it in general?
Well, the ones that go from Ridgedale Avenue in East Hanover down the track all the way down to Algonquin, you don't see.
Yeah,
Anything behind past Algonquin, you don't really see. I think the biggest eyesores are really over here on,
Jefferson Road.
on Eden Lane there.
Yes.
And that is really a big eyesore, because people drive past that. Even the stuff that you have in the center, you know, where the water tank is, where, you know, they
Yeah.
run them.
Yeah,
You know, it really is not Hanover Township, let's
Yeah.
put it that way.
yeah. I know where the museum is.
Yeah.
And I appreciate he's trying to restore some things. He's got some nice cabooses there. They're working on the engine now that they're finally putting back together. So, you know, I can justify some of the activity that's going on down there. So
Yeah.
can the people that come to see it.
Those cars are owned by the Whippany Railway Museum, not the railroad.
That's the
Yeah,
museum.
there's a
I'm sorry. On that
difference.
track, that's not the
Museum
M&E.
property. It's not
The
Yeah.
M&E you're probably talking about is going to be on the west side of Jefferson
cars.
Road, in that storage yard there.
Yeah,
that
okay.
that you're seeing, yeah.
Okay.
We had them put up a stockade fence some time ago. They did that. I don't know, it still looks like it's in fairly good condition, so.
Yeah.
You know, I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
know. Yeah, I don't know if we can get any other cooperation out of them, but I'm always willing to sit down with them.
Thank you. Jerry,
Yes, sir.
where are we with our 6-year culvert?
We have the plans, I have the plans approved, and I have the spec on my desk, and I'm hoping to get that out to bid this month. It's the culvert replacement at the Bee Meadow Pond.
It's only been 6 years.
It has been a long time, we did have DEP issues.
Don't blame them all.
No, you can't blame them for that long a period, but it has been.
Not for 6 years.
No, sir.
4 years maybe, but not 6. All right? Because Ms. Iradi brought up an excellent idea way back when I sat on the committee about making a track around the pond. And that piece there.
A
you
walking
definitely-
path?
A walking path, right. For those people that are on that side, they don't have to go over to any other location. And it would be ideal because you have the one that goes right up along
Yeah, yeah.
the roadway there.
That isn't a bad idea. It's a good idea.
Yeah.
It's also-
I wonder.
Pond, it's also part of the connectivity plan.
Connectivity plan.
I wonder if we have a connectivity plan that's being worked on as we speak. As a matter of fact, we've got an outside consulting firm that's perfecting it. It's Patriot's Path. It's
Yeah.
Patriot's Path, but we've added to it and we've connected all the pieces, and we're moving ahead into the engineering portions of it right now, and we're just debating a contract that we want to potentially award on that thing right now. And that's part of it? Is the pond
Well-
portion part of it?
this culvert replacement is something separate, but it does take advantage, the path would go through that section, and that would be a later phase, but it's something that.
But
is
those
planned
paths
for.
are specified in the?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
My last thing, the best thing that I saw on the agenda tonight was the sidewalk issue. I drive a school bus part-time. I go down that road after school,
Yeah.
and you see these kids walking, 6, 8, 9 kids walking down there, holding their computers or on the telephone, and they are walking in the middle of the road, and these kids here are, you know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, that's a problem.
So, all I can do is say thank you for going ahead and looking at this.
It's, I wish it was going to be an easy fix, but we are going to get into the engineering. We are going to be taking a look at it, see what it takes. It's very difficult property, you know it, coming down that way. I feel it's part of the school zone, myself, because of where the proximity is. One of the things that we want to give consideration to, we're still talking about, is lowering the speed limit in that area, number one. Number two, but we're not all unified on it. There's a speed bump in that area to slow it down. Might be a good thing to do in the interim, but ultimately sidewalks have to happen, so we're going to have to defer to professionals on that to see which side of the street, how, what, where, when. So, and we're allocating the money to do that. We want to make that.
It couldn't get built fast enough as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I think
for the safety of those kids.
Some of the development that happened, including the quick check above, and what is it, Frank's Pizzeria, et cetera, down below in that area and all, the kids find their way, walking down to those
Oh,
areas.
yeah.
They want to walk to those areas.
They go down to the pizzeria or they walk up to
The quick check.
Quick Check.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
That's
Yep.
the attraction. That's the attraction.
But I just wanted to say
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you for listening to me.
Thanks, Howie. We got to do something about it. We will, yeah. Tom?
Just real quick, Tom Ace Gallagher, 20 Woodfield Drive, the Whippany section of Hanover Township. I just want to also say that I think it's great you're looking at that section with the sidewalk. In my trade, I work on the side of a lot of roads. We know what roads are more dangerous than others. And I'll be very vague about the details, but just tonight I told the story about when I was much younger. One road that we worked on quite a bit, I always had a policeman with me because it was so dangerous. We all knew it was very dangerous. And a young girl got killed on it. And shortly after she got killed, they put a sidewalk up. And it still bothers me because I was young, and that's no excuse. I knew it was very dangerous, but I was in no position to do anything about it. But I think it's great to look at something like that, get a little bit aggressive about something like that, especially with the quick check, with all the traffic going from Memorial Junior School down. And we're talking about connectivity and having everybody getting together as a community. The timing right now is fantastic because there hasn't been a tragedy. So again, I'm not a cheerleader, but I want to say thank you very much for looking at that. And I think that's a very important issue in town that we can be looking at, and I'm glad you are. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. I said it, I think, at some past meetings, and I'll say it again. Hanover is dynamic. I mean, we're changing with everything that's going on in this town, and when we touch something, something else has to be looked at, and these sidewalks are becoming more critical to us for the walking, for the pedestrian community, as are this connectivity and these trails. That's as part of what's going to be beneficial to us, not just as residents, but the corporates want it too. It's all a part of a good, safe community, and so we're going to stay on top of it, and thank you. Appreciate it. Anyone else like to be heard at this time? Hearing none? Seeing none? Motion for close?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Mr. Administrator?
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, as we proceed with the next portion of business, we have the approval of the Township Committee July 11th regular meeting, the bid reception committee meetings of July 30th, September 4th, and September 11th, 2013. May we have a motion for approval? So moved by Mr. Capola.
Second.
Second by Mr. Schleifer. All in favor?
Aye.
So approved. Ladies and gentlemen, we have two communications. The first is a letter of resignation by our part-time recording secretary for the Economic Development Advisory Committee, Open Space Advisory Committee, and Landmark Commission for family reasons. That resignation will be effective October 31st, 2013. And as it is customary for the Township Committee to do, we would need a motion to accept that letter of resignation.
I'll make that motion with deep regrets. I have to say that this young lady, Anita, has been extremely great secretary for not only our group, but for EDAC and other groups. And that she's definitely going to be sorely missed based on her efficiency.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second that, and I
Second.
underscore Mr. Capola's commentary. Did a fabulous job with each committee that she worked to support.
And again, we have motion second. All in favor to accept the resignation?
Aye.
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 Second letter is from Public Works employee, truck driver 2, equipment operator John Scagliozzi, notifying us of his pending retirement as of January 1st, 2014. May we have a motion to accept the letter of retirement?
I'll make that motion, Joe, and I just want to say we're going to miss John. He's certainly been interesting all these years. Actually graduated high school with him, so he's been a friend all along. And we're going to miss the experience that we have in our longtime employees. But we wish him well, and we know he has a lot of interests that he's going to pursue after that. We wish him the best with that. So I'll make a motion for that. We do that.
Second.
We have a second by Mr. Faramasco. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are accepting then the letter of retirement. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the following department reports, which are filed in the Business Administrator Township Clerk's Office, and they are available for public inspection. They include the report of the Chief of Police for all activities conducted by the Police Department during the month of September. The Township's Property Maintenance Officer has submitted her report of all activities conducted by the Property Maintenance and Zoning Office as of the 9th of October. Our Superintendent of Public Works, Buildings and Grounds, and Park Maintenance has submitted 2 reports on all the activities conducted by his department during the month of September. And finally, the Township Engineer has provided us with project status report, which all members of the committee have, during the month of September and dated today, October the 10th. Ladies and gentlemen, as we continue with the next item of business, we have the convening of a public hearing concerning the activation of a liquor license, which is held as a pocket license currently by Village Supermarket of New Jersey, LP. It's plenary retail distribution license number 1412-44-009-007. They wish to activate that license for the new business to open as the Village Liquor Store, with premises to be located in the new ShopRite Supermarket at 178 East Hanover Avenue in the Cedar Knoll section of the Township. Well, note for the record that Village Supermarket has filed with the Township an alcoholic beverage retail licensee clearance certificate issued by the Division of Taxation as of the 27th of June 2013, and they filed a full application for the place-to-place transfer, which application is filed in my office and also submitted to the Division of Alcoholic Beverage Control. As required by regulation of the division, we have the affidavit of publication that Village Supermarket notice of today's hearing has been posted in the Daily Record in 2 issues, 2 consecutive issues, the issues of September 28th and October 5th, 2013. And before we convene this public hearing, we will also note for the record 2 letters which have been received by the Business Administrator, Township Clerk's Office. First is a letter which was received in my office yesterday afternoon from an attorney by the name of Evan H.C. Crook, representing the New Jersey Liquor Store Alliance. taking exception to the transfer and placing on the record 2 objections in that letter. Copies of that letter have been given to the Township Committee for their review, and council advises me we do not have to read that letter into the record, but it has been given to the Township Committee. The second letter is a letter from a legal counsel representing Village Supermarket, and that is in response to the letter which has been submitted by Mr. Crook. And once again, Mr. Samrow advises me that we have noted that it is on file and made a part of this record, but we do not have to read it in full into the record. So at this time, we would ask for a motion to convene the public hearing on this proposed
So moved.
transfer. So moved by Mr. Faramaska, seconded by Mr. Capola. On roll call, Mr. Schleifer.
Aye.
Mr. Faramaska.
Aye.
Mr. Capola.
Aye.
And Mr. Francioli.
Aye.
Is there anyone in chambers wishing to be heard concerning the place-to-place transfer of this liquor license? If so, please state your name and address for the record.
Jim Neidhart, 3414 Appleton Way, Whippany section of Hanover Township. It's catching on. I have been all in favor of the ShopRite supermarket from the very beginning. I think it's a great opportunity for Hanover, and the development plans that I have seen and heard about look spectacular. I was disappointed to lose the Hanover liquor store in Pine Plaza, but I'm very pleasantly happy to see that it's going to be reactivated. I don't know how many people know about Village Supermarket. I know a number of people that have worked there and also haven't been in the food business. And I can tell you that Village Supermarket is a great organization with great values. The people that work there absolutely love it, from what I've heard. So I just wanted to say that on the record. I did receive a communication, I believe recently, a couple weeks ago, from the Hanover Chamber of Commerce, and there was an article in there by, I believe, the Director of Community Affairs of Village Supermarket, and they laid out some of the details of what's going to be in the supermarket. It sounds absolutely spectacular. There was one thing in there that I found a little disconcerting, and I suspect that not a lot of thought was given to this, a decision that they made. It appears from what I read in the article that they look to be calling that store the ShopRite of the greater Morristown area. That is a term that I had, in my 31 years of living in this area, I had never heard of that referred to that way, of anything. I did a Google search on the greater Morristown area, and I went 10 to 12 pages, and I could not find anything referring to the greater Morristown area other than a reference to the YMCA on Horse Hill Road. That is the only entity or person in my 31 years that I've ever heard to refer to it. I honestly don't know why they would want to be more anchored and associated with Morristown. Morristown is a community that is larger than Hanover, but considering that the majority of the traffic that the store will see will come from the Township of Hanover, Morris Plains, and Parsippany, and some of the surrounding communities, I just think that that was some marketing person at their headquarters that came up with that. Certainly, I don't believe they did any market research on it, because if they did any market research on that among the various communities that will wind up being in their stores, I don't know if it's too late for them to make a change, but I would suggest that the township, and this isn't just, it's our town and we want it to be called the Hanover Township ShopRite. I just think it's a decision that wasn't very well thought out.
In addition to, you know, it'd be nice if it was the ShopRite of Cedar Knolls or of Hanover Township or the like. I just didn't understand, you know, having spent a lot of time in marketing, 21 years in the marketing area. I know, John, you have a lot of marketing experience. It just doesn't make any sense. Village Supermarket's a great organization. I love everything about their plans. I know this has little to do with the license, but I just had to come up and just put that on record. And I would ask the Township Committee to talk to the village people. I don't know any of the headquarters people who owns it. I don't know the owners. I just know what I've heard of it from the employees, a couple of which work at the headquarters, actually, but...
I think your message is going to get directly to them.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that. Didn't know that, but Google Greater Morristown area, 12 pages, you won't find anything except the YMCA. So,
I thank you, Jim, for bringing that up, because it could be terribly confusing to people in terms of direction, in terms of trying to get places. You know, we should make it easy for the public to get to locations, and it could be very confusing to people, especially those who are trying to find it, who may use a GPS unit, and you're not going to find it.
Interesting. Correction. Morristown smaller by square footage than Hanover Township, same population. So if they want to draw it on a larger audience, being Morristown, I think they came up a little short.
Morristown don't have an airport.
You know, for that. I think that, well, the floor is still open to the public on this. I don't want to...
Anyone else wishing to comment at this time?
Move that we close.
Okay, we have a
Second.
motion by Mr. Capola, seconded by Mr. Faramusca to close the public hearing on roll call. Mr. Schleifer?
Aye.
Mr. Faramusca? Mr. Capola? And Mr. Francioli.
Abstain.
Okay, we have, that's to close the public hearing. Now, I do want to know for the record, before we take a motion on the resolution, there are two special conditions which have been reviewed by myself with Mr. Samrau, and they are as follows on page 2 of the resolution. And it will read, in view of the fact that the village liquor store will be occupying space in a new ShopRite supermarket currently nearing completion, no alcohol may be sold until a temporary certificate of occupancy is issued by the construction official. And the second special condition is one that is included in all liquor licenses, whether consumption or distribution, and that is that entertainment depicting sexual activity and nudity as imposed by the township on all alcoholic beverage licenses is prohibited and shall apply to the transfer of this license to Village Supermarket of New Jersey Limited Partnership. Are there any questions from members of the governing body, or Fred?
Yes, if I may, Mayor, with respect to those two conditions, especially since the store at this point is not open, when you state conditions, the applicant has the right to appeal those conditions. But in this particular case, working with the administrator, I was in touch with the attorney who represents the applicant, and I believe it's my understanding that they do not oppose, or will they appeal, those two conditions of approval. And I believe the attorney's here this evening, and if he wouldn't mind, I would just prefer if he just puts that on the record, that there's no objection to those conditions.
Yes, I'm Dean Donatelli. I'm with the law firm of Lucino, Perlman, which is Gallon Taylor, with the attorneys for the applicant, Village Supermarkets. We've reviewed with Mr. Semro the form of resolution and the conditions which Mr. Giorgio just stated, and we have no objection, nor do we intend to appeal those conditions.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question? When this license for this liquor is provided, seeing as how it's intermingled with foodstuffs, is there a restriction on who can actually sell it or cash it out on your registers? I mean, does someone have
There's
to
a
be
restriction that
21 years of age?
18 years of age.
18.
And they need to be, they need to have a code, they need to be coded in order to operate the register.
No one can touch it that's under the age of 18, any of that liquor?
When you say no one can touch it, in order to operate the register, in order to make the
Be
sale,
involved with anything to do with it?
correct.
Okay. They have the ability, if a younger person has the ability to put it on shelves, are they allowed to do that?
They're allowed to inventory it, but they're not allowed to make the sale.
Just not making sales?
Correct.
And that would be the case in any store.
Correct.
And that's consistent with any practice. But understanding your concern in a store such as this, it's the same rules apply.
Okay, because there's a lot of food stuff, you know.
Right.
The young folks that
It's a good point.
handling.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
And Mayor, I just want to also mention for the record, Administrator Giorgio indicated that there were 2 letters, and they're part of the record, but the objection to this application was based on the fact that the the sale of the alcoholic beverages would be essentially side by side with the sale of food or groceries. And the objection was based upon also legislation that has not been adopted that basically says that this type of commingling, for lack of a better word, is something that would be prohibited. It would be required that the alcoholic beverages would be separate and apart from ceiling to floor. I note that the applicant responded and indicated that, first of all, it's just proposed legislation, and second of all, and this I concur with, it's not illegal as to this application. It's all been reviewed and everything is in order. And I think, to quote the objection, it talks about this isn't within the spirit or intent, but I can tell you that it is perfectly legal as far as the application and the fact that there would be the sale with groceries and things of that nature. We've seen this before, and also the same controls and the same responsibilities remain in place.
You're referring to, Fred?
Yes.
And there's item 1, proposed place-to-place transfer would allow for the commingling of alcohol beverages, groceries, and food stuffs, contrary to the statutory language and spirit and intent of New Jersey Control Alcohol Beverage Control Act.
Yeah.
What did
It's
I
not,
just say?
I think what he's saying is the spirit, but it's not illegal and it's not a violation in any way. So I think the word spirit is what they're saying, and that's their opinion as to the
I know
spirit.
of other
Yeah.
large grocers that are selling wines and spirits, et cetera, in conjunction with foods, and
Right.
it is happening,
Right.
so.
And there was no other testimony offered and no other studies submitted to support their assertion that, in some way this is harmful or dangerous or anything of that nature. One could argue the other way as well, that it's, there's some actual more precautions under these type of circumstances as well.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we have, the public hearing is closed. The resolution is a resolution of the Township Committee of the Township of Hanover, authorizing the approval of a place-to-place transfer of plenary retail distribution license number 1412-44-009-007, held by Village Supermarket of New Jersey Limited Partnership and trading as the Village Liquor Store, with premises located at 178 East Hanover Avenue in the Cedar Knoll section of Hanover Township. May we have a motion for approval?
I will make a motion, given the conditions cited by the business administrator. This is a world-class food store. It's located in Hanover Township, the Cedar Knoll section. I believe this is an amenity. It's a convenience to the shopping public to be able to go in and buy food product along with the various appointments that would go with that food product. I think it's an enhancement. It's a benefit to the community. I do believe that this operator will uphold public safety. I do not see downside associated with it, so I will make that motion.
Okay, Mr. Fermaska makes the motion. Do we have a second? Second by Mr. Capola. On roll call, Mr. Schleifer.
Aye.
Mr. Fermaska.
Aye.
Mr. Capola.
Aye.
Mr. Francioli.
Abstain.
Okay, 3 ayes, 1 abstention, and 1 absent.
I think
And
for the record,
resolution passes.
an explanation of my abstention is in order. I have to tell you that my experience over the last several years on the planning board in the grocery industry has taught me a great deal. I have to say that Hanover Township has been very supportive of village supermarkets, and a very long and involved and protracted hearing over a year when an objector, Stop and Shop, took a position. It was that objector's intention to stop village supermarkets, so they entered into a litigation, founded or unfounded, in my opinion. And we cost the taxpayers of Hanover Township something in excess of $40,000. I sound like Abraham Lincoln, but we are now engaged in the same litigation where Village Supermarkets is now engaging the Township of Hanover, as well as Mac Cali Corporation, etc., in the very same legal shenanigans to slow down the development and of another grocer, competitive grocer. It's an industry kind of thing, and while I appreciate it, I don't appreciate the fact that it pulls in taxpayers' money from Hanover Township into their fun and games. Play it somewhere else. You won't prevail. I abstain on that basis.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, as we continue with the agenda, we have one ordinance for public hearing and final passage. It is docketed as ordinance 30-13. It's capital ordinance authorizing the resurfacing of Melanie Lane from its intersection with Algonquin Parkway to the border of East Hanover Township. The ordinance appropriates the sum of $270,000 from the New Jersey Transportation Trust Fund Authority Act and the year 2013 current fund budget. We have the proof of publication that the ordinance and the notice of introduction appeared in full in the Daily Record issue of September 19th. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, may we have a motion to convene the public hearing?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Faramaska, seconded by Mr. Schleifer. On roll call, Mr. Schleifer.
Aye.
Mr. Faramaska.
Aye.
Mr. Capola.
Aye.
And Mr. Francioli.
Aye.
Is there anyone present wishing to be heard concerning ordinance number 30-13? Please state your name and address for the record.
Joseph Mahalco, 12 Anna Terrace, Whippany section of Hanover Township. The only question that I address towards this resolution, this hearing, I read in the paper that East Hanover has received monies to rebuild Melanie Lane Bridge. And my only concern is the timing of doing this project versus the bridge and its construction. I hope that we don't have a conflict with our brand-new road being overutilized by construction equipment as they go to rebuild the bridge. As long as we can address that, it's certainly a phenomenal idea.
Joe, fully agree. Fully agree. As I had said to the administrator on this, I think this will allow us to go forward on the contract. But as far as the awarding and so forth, but the dates of start and finish on this thing are still under our control.
According to the grant that we're receiving from NJDOT, which is $145,000,
We have a clock.
we
on
have until December 2014 to
2014,
complete it.
yeah.
But I'd like to ask Jerry, if you don't mind, Mayor,
Yes.
whether or not we could get an extension of that time. Is that possible?
We'd have to make that correspondence with the state and ask.
We certainly don't want to tear up a new road. And
Please not.
and far as I know, a bridge has to be worked from both sides. I talked to Mayor Panullo, and they're good to go, but they're waiting on the county. I guess the county's dollars have to be allocated to them, and I think it's probably just a technicality of a budget process into 2014. And I think they have still some remaining issues with the DEP. He foresees that bridge being about a year in construction, and he has no idea how far away he still is from awarding it. So we could be farther than a year in this whole matter, and I certainly don't want to see a new street constructed if this bridge. I think that's a very reasonable piece of information to go to the grants people on this thing.
Yeah.
You know? Thanks, Joe.
Anyone else wishing to be heard concerning ordinance number 30-13? Name and address for the record, sir.
Jim Neidhart, 3414 Appleton Way, Whippany Section, Hanover. Just a quick question. How far does Hanover's property go down Melanie Lane? Does it go all the way to the bridge, or does it stop short of the bridge?
We stopped
Short of the bridge.
Short of the bridge, yeah, just short of the bridge.
The bridge is East Hanover, stops just short of the bridge.
Okay, so any construction that would take place at the bridge site wouldn't affect us. It's only
That's
equipment
only-
coming down the road to reach the bridge, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know.
Just a
Thank you.
little tidbit of history. Up until 1982, that road did not go through. It was in 1982 that roadway was open. I remember because I was there.
Yeah.
And that was a big thing for both East Hanover and Hanover Township to
Yeah, just for-
open up that
Just
corridor.
for clarification, our town line ends at the Red Bulls property. There's a DPW yard that East Hanover has, so that's prior to that bridge. So we don't go right up to the bridge, Jim. We don't abut the bridge. But it's still a wise decision to delay it. Let's not take an investment and destroy it.
Okay, may we have a motion to close the
So
public hearing?
moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Now on adoption, be it resolved in an ordinance entitled, an ordinance of the Township Committee of the Township of Hanover authorizing the resurfacing of Melanie Lane from its intersection with Algonquin Parkway to the border of East Hanover Township, within the township, and appropriating the sum of $270,000 for said improvement from the New Jersey Transportation Trust Fund Authority Act and the year 2013 current fund budget be passed on final reading, and that a notice of the final passage of the ordinance be published in the October 17, 2013 issue of the Daily Record. May we now have a motion on adoption?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Fermaska.
Second.
By Mr. Capola. On roll call for adoption, Mr. Schleifer.
Aye.
Mr. Fermaska.
Aye.
Mr. Capola.
Aye.
And Mr. Francioli.
Aye.
So adopted. Ladies and gentlemen, we have one ordinance for introduction this evening. It is docketed as ordinance 32-13. It amends and supplements Chapter 166 of the Code of the Township, entitled Land Use and Development Legislation, by amending the regulations for the WC Whippany Center Zone District. This ordinance will be further considered for public hearing and final adoption at the Township Committee meeting on November 14th at 8:30 p.m. here in the main meeting room. And at that time, any person wishing to be heard concerning the ordinance will be given the opportunity to speak. In accordance with the municipal land use law, the ordinance will be referred to the planning board for their review and recommendations. It is further resolved that the ordinance and the notice of introduction be published in full in the Morris County Daily Record in accordance with law. May we now have a motion for introduction?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Fermaska.
Second.
Second by Mr. Capola. And roll call for introduction. Mr. Schleifer.
Aye.
Mr. Fermaska.
Aye.
Mr. Capola.
Aye.
And Mr. Francioli.
Aye.
So introduced. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we now have resolutions as a consent agenda. Are there any questions from members of the governing body concerning any of the four resolutions?
Move to be approved.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Capola.
Second.
Second by Mr. Schleifer. On roll call for approval of the resolution consent agenda, Mr. Schleifer.
Aye.
Mr. Fermaska.
Aye.
Mr. Capola.
Aye.
And Mr. Francioli.
Aye.
So approved. We have one raffle application also to be taken as a consent agenda. Raffle application number 2690, St. John the Baptist Ukrainian Catholic Church.
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Capola.
Second?
Second by Mr. Schleifer. And roll call, Mr. Schleifer.
Aye.
Mr. Faramaska.
Aye.
Mr. Capola.
Aye.
And Mr. Francioli.
Aye.
So approved. And we have payment of bills, $4,971,057.11.
Make a motion, we pay the bills.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Mr. Schleifer, seconded by Mr. Faramaska. All in favor?
Aye.
So approved. Mr. Chairman, members of the Township Committee, that clears the agenda of the Business Administrator Township Clerk. I'm trying to do speed reading like you. Thank you, Mayor.
Don't read so fast that the public doesn't understand it. Then you're non-transparent.
No, that's true.
Then we got another whole issue, you know?
Thank you very
Okay,
much.
very good. All right, gentlemen, is there any other business from the Township Committee?
Not tonight.
Just want to compliment the members of the public who came out Saturday morning to make certain that they're not depositing things into the waste system when they can safely see it shredded, their
Oh, the shredding.
confidential documents.
Yeah.
Very, very good shred day. Hats off to the Environmental Commission who attended it and helped out with Employment Horizons. This was done at zero cost to the taxpayers in Hanover Township, and it was just a very, very good service to them, and they took full advantage of it.
I took advantage of it for the first time, John. It was a great experience.
Thanks for
Able to
coming.
Clean out the attic of some old records.
You cleaned out all your
Yeah.
check stubs and everything, you know?
Yeah.
Son of a gun. Well, going along with that, I'd like to also recognize all the people that cooperated and worked so hard with us from our town and from Bayer. On the Monday, we did a significant river cleanup along the Whippany River from Whippany Road down past JR. It's almost to PC Richards. And we took a half a ton of debris out of that river. And shopping carts, tires, television sets, and assorted sundry. And I have to thank County Public Works Department, did a yeoman job that day, rainy as the dickens. These about 100 or so Bayer employees were out there in T-shirts working along that river. Our Public Works Department was there, our fire companies, both Whippany and Cedar Knolls were there, our first aid squad was there, OEM, we had all of our municipal people there to cooperate as well. It was a wonderful day of cooperation, and I further learned today, Mr. Administrator, that through the wonderful efforts of Bayer Corporation and through their Bayer funds, we are going to be awarded a significant amount of money to stabilize the banks of the Whippany River all the way down and to work with the Whippany River Watershed Action Committee on those banks and to clean up that area. So we thank our new neighbor Bayer very, very much. Paint's just about drying on their walls, and they've done so much for the township already. They're absolutely phenomenal, you know, in that regard. Anything else from the committee?
I think it's nice to congratulate the Ukrainian folks for the great job they did with the cornerstone, the creation of the mass, of the altar. It was a tremendous weekend. I also think they did a great job with the festival. It's just a wonderful members of our community, and I thought everyone really had a good time. Last year, they ran out of pierogies. They only had 7,000. This year, they made 8,000.
But the pulled pork was good. Gotta tell you.
I thought it was great as always.
Yeah. Thank you, George. Okay. All right, nothing else from the Township Committee. Motion to open the floor once again.
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, the floor is open. Anyone would like to address the Township Committee, again, may do so from the podium, giving us your name and address for the record. Hearing none. Seeing none.
Move it close.
2, 3, 4. Move to close? Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Motion for adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Committee is
Go
adjourned.
Giants. Go Giants.
Yeah.
Go Giants. Oh, yeah, what,
Let's say a prayer for the Giants.
On a comparative basis, it's been a record.
What would this be, 6-0?
It's a much better trend.
No, wins and losses, 0-6?
0-6. If they lose tonight.
That's a good